In today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about goal setting. Now, for some of you, you love goals. You dream and breathe goals, but there's a population out there that hates this discussion, and you hate it because it can be a very overwhelming topic. I get it. All right. So we're going to jump into that because it's 2021, baby. So we should be embracing goals. We should embrace this conversation, and I'm going to help make it easy. All right. You're listening to the Joshua Mentality. Welcome back, my people, mi gente. This is the first Wednesday of 2021. Man, time just keeps flying, doesn't it? Well, I hope you had a wonderful New Year's, Eve, New Year's Day, holiday, all that good stuff. I think the last time we spoke was right before the new year. And on the other side of this thing, I got to say, it feels good. It feels hopeful. It feels like there's some expectation for this year, and that is normal. We'll see how things progress as these weeks start to build on each other. But congratulations, folks. You got a reset. Think about this. You just got awarded a reset of 52 more weeks. Now, some of us will not see the full 52 weeks. And I know that sounds a little morbid for some, but that's the truth. And I want you to look at it and think about it from that context. Because every set of 52 that we get to encounter is a blessing and an opportunity to maximize everything that your life was purposed for. So with that, I think it's a great segue for those of you who maybe you're joining this for the first time this year. And so I don't want to be rude. Let me introduce myself again. This podcast, the Joshua Mentality, the Joshua Mentality Tribe, those who listen to this, it's all about growth, maximizing your life purpose, and really focusing on that leadership development aspect. That is a passion of mine. By trade, I am an organizational psychologist, speaker, and coach. And all of those things are under the strategy umbrella. So we talk a lot on this podcast about strategizing life, practically, conceptually, and any other way that I can think of that starts with UOLE, I give that to. All right. This is my service platform to try and serve others by encouraging them to be the best version of themselves, the version that God created them to be. All right. So there's a lot of elements in here. You can go back and listen to previous episodes. Maybe the first episode would be a really good one I'd recommend if you want to know more about what this show is about and my heart behind this podcast. I think I just called it a show. My wife hates when I do that. So it's not a show, it's a podcast. I think there are other people who are really they are sticklers for calling this a show or a podcast. I don't know. Call it what you want. As long as you're listening and getting some out of it, I don't care. All right. So moving on, for this episode, I really like to fashion these episodes as kind of if we were sitting down having a conversation. I like that feel to things. I think that's where a lot of growth and natural life change occurs. So as much as I can, we're not with each other, but I try to envision what it would be like to sit down and talk to you. If you were my little brother, or if you were a close friend of mine or family member, I try to approach it that way. So no, it's all coming from a place of love. I look at you like a close friend, not just a typical listener to some random show. No, I care about your purpose, and I want to approach it that way. So I tell you that because today's conversation, I wanted to we talked a lot in the last episode about ramping up to the new year. If you remember those 3 points we talked about with not waiting for the new year, making sure you're identifying your trees that are the trees that make up your goal, I think is how we fashioned that. And then we talked about expecting some failure in 2021. Like getting that's the free bingo spot. There's going to be some events of failure, and that's okay. That's actually a good thing, because as I've always said, failure is life's ultimate tour guide. I will repeat that. Failure is the tour guide of life. And what do I mean by that? Failure is the man or woman, that voice in your head that when something doesn't go the way you should or you think it should go. Failure is that voice saying, all right, that didn't work. It's time to get back to the drawing board and try something else. If you are hearing any other voice or any other interpretation of failure in your mind than what I just described of, okay, that didn't work. Let's reset and try something else. If you're hearing anything other than that, you are not hearing the voice of failure. You are probably hearing some other voice that is far more toxic and dangerous and combative towards your life purpose. And what I mean by combative, meaning it is trying to beat away and eat away at your life purpose and the health of your mind and mentality. And I'm just going to tell you that right now, because failure, if the tour guide should say, all right, that's the wrong direction. Let's go a different one. But if you're hearing something that is eating away at your makeup, your purpose, meaning a voice that says you're not anything or you're not good enough, that's not the voice of failure. So I didn't mean to get off on that tangent, but I want to be clear. When I say expect failure, I want you to know what that voice sounds like. Failure is an accompaniment to your success, the destiny that is your, the success that is your destiny. That's what failure is. It is not some monster or adversary that's trying to defeat you. No, failure is on your team. Failure is wearing the same jersey. Whatever your last name is, the failure is wearing the jersey. It's all right. I just want you to know that. Okay. So that was a long segue to come back to the original point. I want to continue some of that conversation because with a lot of the feedback I've been getting, we talk a lot about goals and we do it in a way, I think we do it a little bit of a disservice when many leaders talk about goals or when there's many conversations that are led around goals. Because I think we assume that people understand what goes into making a goal and how to best define the goals for their life. Because the goals for my life and the goals for yours, they may have some similarities, but they're not going to be the same. And so if you develop your goals based on mine, you could very well have a plan for your life that is not meant for your life. So I think the conversation for today would be very helpful to just talk about goal setting, like goal setting made easy, and not from I don't want to get into any methodology because there's so many you can talk about. We can talk about SMART goals. We can talk about there's a coaching model even called the GROW model that I think can be used for setting goals. But before we even get into any of that, I think many of you just need a good old conversation, a good old one-on-one about removing the pressure from setting goals. There are many of you who are listening to this right now. I know it. I sense it in my mind, my heart, all of my sensors. I can feel that there are some of you who are just like me and have experienced some of the pitfalls and challenges that I've experienced when it comes to goal setting. So what am I referring to? Some of you are just like me. I remember when I first started getting into making goals and really trying to think about ahead. I mean, I told you my strength set is that I have a futuristic strength, meaning I like to live in the future. But even with that strength, I found it difficult to think about goals and setting goals. So if you're like me, imagine the pressure, the tension headache that would build up in your mind whenever someone would walk up to you and say, not only what are your goals for this year, what's your 5-year plan? What's your plan for the next, not just one set of 52 weeks. I want you to times that by 5 and tell me what your plan is. Are you kidding me? I struggle enough, and this was my response at the time. I struggle enough trying to figure out what my plan is for the next 5 hours. You want the next 5 years? I doubt I can give you the next 5 days. And to be honest, I think that still happens from time to time because there's this overwhelming feeling that can accompany the goal setting talk. And I know a lot of you feel it. And what that usually translates to is we just don't do it. We don't plan. We don't set goals. We just kind of figure that I'm going to do my best to make this year a great year. But here's the trouble with that. Here's the trouble with that mindset, that mentality. There's this quote that just keeps following me around, and I keep hearing it everywhere I go. And it's a great quote, but it talks about the dangers of not planning. And the quote, I can't remember it verbatim, but it essentially says, whatever you plan for or don't plan for is the goal you will achieve every time. So if you don't plan to achieve anything, that's a goal you will hit every time. If you're looking at this year and you're allowing overwhelming feelings, overwhelming thoughts, or that tension headache that you get when you think about planning and setting your goals, if you're allowing that to stop you from taking the first step, even if it's a baby step, you are robbing yourself. You are robbing yourself, and you are, in many ways, you are depriving yourself. Now, what are you talking about, Joshua? That sounds very extreme. I'm telling you it's not. Because there's greatness there. You are a golden iceberg. And when we don't plan, we only allow, just like if you've ever seen an iceberg, stop, get on Google Images and look it up. Only a certain small percentage of the iceberg peeks its head out of the water. But there's so much more underneath the surface. There's so much untapped iceberg just lying dormant underneath the surface. And that's what happens when we don't face this monster of goal setting and planning. I do not want you to spend another year avoiding this because it's overwhelming and stressful. So let's make this easy. Let's make this easy and let's take the pressure off of setting goals, okay? Does that sound good to you? I hope it does. So here's how we're going to do this. The first thing, I'm going to lay this out for you, and I will tell you at the front end, I know I've sat in the audiences where the speaker says, hey, take out your notepad and write this down, and nobody does it. Nobody cares. I get it, but please, please, please trust me, because you can always set this back and listen to it again. I challenge you at some point, whether you do it right now, which I would highly encourage, that's where you get the highest percentage of return, or whether you say, I'm going to stop and listen to this back later. But I challenge you to try what I'm about to tell you. Try what I'm about to tell you, and I promise you, if you are someone that has struggled with setting goals, you will not struggle any longer if you try this. If you do this, okay? And this is not an infomercial. I'm not selling you anything. I'm about to give you all this for free, okay? Listen, the first thing you need to do if you struggle, if you want to not forget about the struggle. Let's focus on the positive aspect. If you want to make goal setting easy, the first thing you need to do is start thinking about your goals from a value-based perspective. If you want to make goal setting easy, think of goals from a value perspective. You can write that down as number one, valued perspective. Or maybe the better way to say that is value-driven perspective. Oftentimes when we think about our goals, we think about what we want to accomplish more than we think about who we want to become. There is a striking contrast between the two. Accomplishments are fleeting if they're not rooted in embedded in the character and the foundation of a greater being. Now, that greater being, of course, starts with God, but there's a layer to that. The more we get to know God, the more we get to know ourselves, our own greater being. And the more we get to know that, the easier it is to plan and goal set. So instead of if you sit down and you think about, okay, here's all the things I want to accomplish, that can lead to a very overwhelming feeling, because then you have to think about all the energy that's going to go into that. So thinking about all you want to accomplish, let's use this analogy. Thinking about all you want to accomplish sucks energy out of you. Think of that as the goal setting being the vacuum and it's just sucking energy out of you. Thinking about who you want to become, that's energizing because you get to envision yourself in greater heights. Accomplishments can be fleeting because they can be very transactional. But when it talks about who you want to become, now there's a greater value in that. It's tangible. It's a greater value. And so I would challenge you, if you're goal setting, be sure that you are setting goals based off of values. So here's what you're going to have to do in order to do that. You're going to have to determine what your values are. You are going to have to really, and I mean this literally, you're going to have to write down what are your values. What's the anchors of your values, the things that you care about? And some of you, even that thought might be a little overwhelming. So let me give you another layer deeper than that. Make it easy. Get on Google, type in top values list. I don't know, something like that. It'll give you a list of values. And you can just sit there and pick through the ones that you can say, you know what? That matters to me. That's something that I care about. And you might start off with a huge list, but you will slowly start to condense that list to things that you care about. And what I would challenge you to do is whenever you get that thought of a goal that you want to accomplish, go back and look under your value list and connect it to a value or a set of values on that list. You have to connect it because you have to keep in perspective how this goal is increasing and enhancing who you're becoming. That's good. I don't care what anybody says. That's free and that's good. Like, I'm serious. I that's tongue in cheek, but I'm serious. I can't tell you how many people are overwhelmed when it comes to making their goals because their goals are rooted in someone else's being instead of their own. We're making goals based on things that we're seeing because maybe we feel a little bit inadequate because we're not accomplishing as much as the next person, or we're not as advanced as that person, or our faith isn't as big as this person, or our discipline or this or that. You fill in the gap. You can fill in that blank with anything because I'm sure you've experienced it. You've experienced going after a goal and shortly after, the fervor, the passion, the fire, it quells. It goes right away. But you've also experienced when it's something that you really care about, it seems to happen. And maybe you've never drew a connection why that is. And I'm telling you today, helping you out, because I want you to understand and I want you to just test it out yourself. Go look at the things you've accomplished and the things that seemed a lot easier to set goals for and do versus the things that seemed a lot harder, and tie which ones were rooted in values and which ones weren't. I'm not telling you anything new here. This isn't some, new phenomenon that Joshua came up with. I learned this from reading and growing in development. And I'm just sharing it with you because I want you this year to get over the hump. I want you to get over the hump of not setting goals and therefore not even having an idea of how you grew from one year to the next. And that sounds deep, I know, but it is that deep. Think about this. That is a disservice to the potential in you if you can't tell from one year to the next how much of your potential you cashed in. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to honor yourself, to honor the God-given potential that's within you. And you will do so if you apply the things we're talking about today and really take steps towards making this whole goal setting thing easy. And I promise you, you will get to a place after you practice this and you continue to grow in this area. You will get to a place where you will stop and you will wonder. You'll send me a letter about it. And you will say, I cannot believe I went so long I cannot believe I went so long not tapping into the greater depths of the greatness and the purpose that is within me, because I was overwhelmed and I didn't want to, think about goal setting. That's what you're going to tell me. Because once you start to apply values to your goals, that's where everything begins to change, because it becomes about who you're becoming. The focus is then put on you. The measurement is not, comparing yourself to someone else. It wipes all of that out, because the only comparison that you have is yourself. I tell people all the time, I don't compare myself to no one. Not because I think I'm better than anyone else or any of that. I know what my potential is. I know what my purpose is. And so that is the comparison. That's the benchmark. How much of that am I tapping into? If you told me, if we sat across and you put, $1 million in front of me and you told me, hey, you have the opportunity to tap into as much of this money as you want, how much you think I'm going to tap into? How much would you tap into? With a chorus all together, we would all yell out 100%. We're tapping into 100% of that. And that's what this is about. It's about tapping into that $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion potential and value that's on the inside of you. And I want you to really assess what percentage of that are you tapping into with your goals and your goal setting. And how can we begin to incorporate the foundation of values within your goals so that you can have the sustaining power to go after them and accomplish them. And then when you get on that mountain, it'll be worth it, because at the root of that mountain was something that's fulfilling and valuable. All right. That's my goal setting made easy intro and soapbox for today. I think that's enough. We're at the 20-minute mark. I try to keep this really bite-sized for a reason. I don't want to oversaturate the mind. I think there's a lot to just do and take out of this episode. So let's stop there. The next time, maybe we'll talk about some of the bats. And I'll leave it at that. I'll kind of leave it on the edge of what that means. But that's something else that helps to uncover and help us make goal setting easy. So I'll leave it there. You've been listening to the Joshua Mentality. I pray and hope you got something out of this. If not, multiple things, at least one thing that you can get started on. That's my goal. That's my hope. But you let me know, because this is still new, and it's something that I'm trying to perfect and get to the best and the greatest level that it can be. So you let me know what stood out to you, what didn't, and we'll keep growing together. All right. Again, this is the Joshua Mentality. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Thank you all for your support. And remember, success is your destiny.